Breaking the cycle to step forward. Authentic conversations from lived experience and a professional perspective in overcoming abuse with Chris Tuck and Beverley Ann.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Breaking the Cycle to Step Forward podcast with me, Chris Tuck, and the lovely
Beverley Ann. Hello everyone.
Hi, and we're smiling and laughing at the moment because we've just had a very long conversation about everyday struggles, Beverley, and we started the recording off with me saying things back to front, which was quite funny, really, bearing in mind what we're going to talk about today. So do you want to kick this off and just share with everybody something that you've been dealing with for years?
Yes, so I had an assessment this week, which took a long time, but it was to see if I'm dyslexic, which for me, when somebody first mentioned it, I was like, no, but I can read and write and I can spell. So I can't be dyslexic. And that was my own views on what dyslexia actually is. And that comes from when you're a child. If you could read and write, you weren't dyslexic. However, I had this assessment, which actually went on for 4 hours with a wonderful lady. And it transpires I am definitely dyslexic. How she describes it is, and we're always talking about the brain, you have the left-hand side of the brain and the right-hand side of the brain. And the messaging that's coming through our neurons, if we were to scan our brain, would show an area, just one area that would be like highlighted, and the information would come in to that one area and leave via that one area. However, not my brain, and certainly not, I'm not alone. 20% of people, and we also know that trauma is a part of this as well, is if you imagine my brain left and right, but the information comes in and goes out, and it looks much the same as a cookie, with the chocolate chips in them.
Oh, right. So rather than one light bulb going off in your left side of your brain, you said,
Yeah,
which is usual,
yeah,
you've got this cookie with chocolate chips, and all of the chocolate chips, they're taking it in turns to fire off.
yeah. And I use different parts of my brain to draw the information in, process, and it to go out. So that is like, how have I got here this far? And actually,
how have you managed it?
Yeah. And I will say it was highly emotive, even down to the pre-assessment form. And I did have to look after myself. And I think it's really good to share this because I myself, as a practitioner, have clients and I ask them to fill in a pre-assessment form.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say to them instinctively, fill in what you can, and what you can't, don't worry, we can do it together.
Yeah.
And I remember even in my training looking at this form thinking, whoa, this is big. And I had to keep going back to it just to learn about the form. But the way I am with my wellness tools that I have, if something's too big and it's overwhelming, I break it down. So a lot of my own tools that I have in my wellness box I use in everyday life. And that's what's got me here. The tears that came weren't for the fact that I've been diagnosed as dyslexic, because that's my uniqueness. It was more when I look back at my younger self and the struggles that I've done. And even as an adult, where I'm studying at university, the time I've taken to do something. And I'm not going to go into independent tutors because that wouldn't be fair. But the difference in tutor and the difference in learning availability classes had a huge impact on me.
So can I just stop you there for a moment? You mean the way that the tutors present the work that they expect you then to take on board and get on with, depending on how they delivered it to you, depends on how you take on board the information and then how you can then do the task or the assignment that's been given to you. Is that what you're saying here?
Yeah, and that's a big part of it. It's not all of it, but it's a big part.
No.
So for instance, if I just say my first module, my tutor was very, very good, very intuitive. I mean, I was told she was one of the best, and she certainly is. So intuitively, she recognised that I have a certain skill that I could do something. So when we were looking at essay writing, she said, like, this is what everybody else needs to do. And then she said, Beverley, you do that very well. What I'd like you to focus on is this. So she put it over in a way that it didn't come across as critical, but now I can see what she's saying, and like, yes. And I took that all in. And when I'm learning, I listen to everything. Well, I do anyway. I take it in and I take it literally. And so I've been spending over and above the amount of time to learn. And I remember also when we also in our first module had in-person learning. So you could go to a live event and meet other people. That I love, because you get to hear other people, and I process it and think, okay, that's a different way to look at it. I'd also go online learning, and fine, love that because it embeds it. But when the PowerPoint comes up and there's so much information, no. And in my second module, when that happened, I actually downloaded the PowerPoint, printed it, and then I highlighted it and was writing points that I needed from it. And again, that's a coping mechanism, but I didn't realise. I just thought that was me. I'll be honest, I thought, being 60, I thought, well, you learn to read and write on paper and you're just making the best of it. And I did think only a short time ago, reflecting about my first year in uni, is it that you need to learn how to read better online? Right? Because I can't read properly on documents online. I can't read it properly and I can't take it in. And now I know it isn't me. That's how my brain is wired. So,
and we were talking about this, weren't we? That I don't think I'm dyslexic any way, shape, or form, because I, as I explained to you earlier, I write very well. I don't orate very well, not as good as I do on paper. I write really well. And when I put posts up, I think people can't believe maybe that it's the same person. And I also, like you, Beverley, I have to print everything off and I have to write on everything. And as you can see all around my office, I've got folders upon folders for different stuff. And I have to write on it in order for my brain to take it on board. But I've always put mine down to the fact that I've got complex PTSD and my brain is always on hyper alert and it's always everywhere. So to focus, I need something tangible. Look, even here, whilst we're speaking, I'm writing. So right, she just said that. I want to come back to that. Yeah. So that's my coping way. That's my way of doing things. And I've never seen anything wrong in that, but it is a duplication of work.
yeah. And it's fascinating as well how we're our own inner critic. So,
Yes.
I was really emotional, and I don't mind sharing. I cried. It wasn't because it wasn't because someone acknowledged that I had dyslexia. I don't care about that. Yes, years ago, I wouldn't have liked the labels because I've grown up with labels and I've been defined by my labels. Being a care leaver means I'm going to achieve to nothing, So I've never wanted that. Whereas now I can see, actually, well done, Beverley, but also my younger self. Oh my God, the effort you have put into stuff. Well done. When you weren't stupid, you were doing your best. On my school reports, instead of if Beverley applied herself better, I was applying myself well. I was applying myself more so than some people. And that's the bit, it's like, well done. Because there are times when I'm doing something, when I'm in the midst of it, I know it inside out because I want to, and I learn it inside. That's where my passion comes from. But when I'm asked to relay that in writing, it doesn't come out the same. Or it takes me a long time to do even, a paragraph, because I go over it and over it and over it. Whereas now, what's fantastic, the relief is like I will get support and tools,
Mm-hmm.
not telling me the answers, but
Yeah.
helping me embed them. So like note taking,
Yeah.
you know, that will take a different form because I write all the time, short
Yeah.
bits, my post-it notes. There you go, not my note sticks, but that's how my brain works. But what fascinates me is about how and it really embeds all what we say and all the learning about changing the messaging.
Yeah.
Because I have done, and a bit like any recovery as well, when we talk about wellness tools and self-care. One of the things I've realised as well, looking back, I haven't been to yoga for quite a while
Yeah.
with new rotas and different things like that. As much as it's important to me, it's got sidelined because I've been
Yeah.
using that time to try and catch up. And I feel
Yeah.
like I've been sinking a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, when you get that sinking feeling, I'm always the first one to think, what are you doing for your self-care?
Yeah.
And then I realised, Beverley, when was the last time you went to an actual yoga class? Oh, yeah, but I've been busy. And as soon as I thought that, I was like, stop right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stop.
Because I don't know about you, Bev, but you've got, through our advancing years and our wisdom and our experiences that we are taking on board, we now have a line that if we go below that line, we know there's going to be a slide in mental and physical health. So therefore that line needs to be checked in upon all of the time. And you saying, I haven't been to yoga, now come on, stop. You've got to put that back in place for yourself, because
Well, I had to, because
yeah.
also, you know, we're being upfront, you know, and honest,
Mm-hmm.
because when we talk about self-care, you know, I know at times it sounds like we've got everything in place and everything's really smooth. And that the reality is life happens. It's not smooth.
Yeah, and we have to practice, don't we? Practice what we
Absolutely.
preach.
Absolutely. For me, the tip over point was I had a migraine this week. And when
Mm,
that migraine came up, I was like, it knocked me. That really was my alarm bells going, because I'd had a
yeah,
headache a few days before. But did I
yeah,
slow down? No, because I had
no,
those things to do. And when I had to, when it was like, Beverley, you're going to be stopped. You can't do anything more. It really got me like,
yeah,
oh, come on. You
yeah,
haven't had a migraine like this for years.
mm-hmm,
So that was a rush of emotions. I understand that. But I just want anyone who's listening, you know, when I always say about make it simple, make it simple. When I went to yoga yesterday, I walked there. I even said to myself, you're going to yoga to relax. You are not going to make sure you do every single thing. You are going to
yeah,
tune into your body and you're going to allow your body to do what it wants to do.
yeah,
And it was wonderful.
yeah. So when I teach Pilates, Bev, and over the years, because I don't want to obviously embarrass any of my clients, but over the years, I choose to do everything. I, I teach for them to become intuitive to their bodies. It's all about the feeling rather than about perfection. It's all about making sure you tune into your breath and move at your pace and do what's good for you, do what's comfortable, whatever they need to hear on that day. And when they do, you'll get some people going, "Oh, sorry, I fell asleep," or "Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to, but I've just passed winds." They might not say it, but that's what happens. Um, so all of these bodily functions that just happen when you truly just give yourself that time and that space to just do what it needs to do. And sometimes it is doing nothing.
It is. And when, you know, the best strength we get
Mm-hmm.
when we're overcoming trauma is our strength. The fact that the fact that we went through it, we learned how to survive. That was a strength. And we continue using that strength. When we're learning to check in with ourselves, what we're learning is how to be vulnerable. And I've said this many and many a time.
Mm,
That's always been the biggest challenge for me, because vulnerability for me means danger. And I'm
Yeah,
sharing
it
that
will.
with people. So, because there'll be people going, yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's
Yeah.
why Brené Brown is fantastic. And I'm going on the train later on. I'm going to listen to Brené Brown again.
Yeah.
Because when I listen to her, she really embeds that importance of, yeah, it's okay. And it's nobody else. It's my inner critic.
Yeah.
My inner
Can I
critic.
pick up on a few of those points that you've just said? I've just written it down. You're saying that when we was going through our survival, that it is a strength, but it's the fact that we don't actually get a choice in that, do we? We just, survival is survival. We're just trying to get through our everyday when we're going through childhood, adolescence, and any time that we're in a dysfunctional setting. So it could be you're being bullied at work, for example. So you might not have gone through childhood stuff. So it is a strength, but it's not a strength at the time when you're going through it, because you've just got no choice. It's
You,
just, that's
you,
what we do.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that, though, is because we can often feel like, the shame. We do feel, not often, we feel the shame. We feel the guilt. We question ourselves. What did I do? What could I have done better?
Yeah.
But, and this is where they're all valid questions and they have to be looked at. Okay. But this is where it's also important when we're in that place and we start, and we're really starting to look back, we can often forget also, you know what? Well done, because you have found a way at that time to cope. You have found a way to be here today, whatever your age.
Yeah.
And that needs to be recognised.
Yeah, 100%. But where I was going with this, and it just flashed up as a light bulb moment, is that the strength in showing your vulnerability, because vulnerability means fear, or it means that you're going to be hurt all over again. And we often say, don't we, and I say this a lot, finding your authentic self, but many people will not be able to find their authentic self because it's vulnerability, because it's where they get hurt. So in order to do that full circle of surviving and then going to the vulnerable self, that's where you truly get that cycle, don't you, of what I'm thinking right now, of that strength. Because being your authentic self is when you just get to a place where you just don't give a monkey's, I nearly swore, try not to, what other people think of you or any of that. And you say, we're being professional, and we're obviously not out to cause anyone any harm or to offend anybody, but at the same time, you're confident in you, you're confident
Yes.
in your skin, you're confident in who you are living by your own principles and your own standard. You treat people like you want to be treated. That's what I mean by the authentic
Yes.
self. But there is a journey of vulnerability to get there, isn't there?
There is. And this is where I always think, before you start that journey, is it's doing those small things. And I do use the word self-care because that's my way to communicate that. But even thinking about that first cup of tea in the morning, or coffee or cold drink, whatever drink it is in the morning that you're having, how many times do we just get up and get that drink and we just drink it and then we carry on with the day? Right? We haven't even considered ourselves. We wake up and the first thing, right, what day is it? What time is it? What have I got to do?
Yeah.
Right? Those are the first things. And we're already later on in the day and we haven't got out in bed. Whereas this is where it's less scary, because actually, let's go the other way. We're lay in bed, just checking with yourself. What level do I feel at today? Do I feel like I'm at level 3? Do I feel like I'm at level 5? Do I feel like I'm at level 8 and I'm about to jump out? If I'm at a level 3 or 2, okay, I feel a bit tired, feel a bit overwhelmed. What do I need right here, right now? Am I taking any deep breaths? Or what do I want to have for drink? What's my first drink going to be? Where am I going to have it? What am I going to drink it in? Sounds really simple, but that's the first steps of learning to check in. You've not been asked to go back and go over any trauma that you've experienced. You're checking in with today. And by starting in with those little steps, that's where we start. And the reason why we start doing that, it reminds our body we're safe. This is where we are today. We're in a safe space. Because if you was in a place of danger, you can't do that.
No, because your brain's all over the place, wondering where the danger's going to come from.
Yeah.
But so I do all of that. As soon as I wake up, my brain goes, oh my God, what day is it? What time is it? Well, I should be here. I should be there. But that's automatic for me. And then it's right. Okay. Are you teaching a class? Get your bum out of bed and get there, don't be late. But when I do get to the kitchen and I open up my cupboard, I do go, you'll laugh at this. Shall I have my Corfu mug today? Shall I have my Kefalonia mug? Or shall I have my dog mug? Or I do literally go through all my different mugs, because every time I go away, even if it's in this country, and if I go to a particular town or a seaside, I always buy a mug from that. So I've got all different ones. And then I literally do go, I feel like that one today, because it's brought a smile to my face for whatever reason. So I do that, actually, just as a normal. So it doesn't matter what else goes on. My first smile of the day will be opening up that cupboard and selecting my cup.
Fantastic. So now you can, when you do that, you'll be smiling even more.
Yeah, I'm smiling now.
Yeah, because, and this is the thing, we do some things as normal, and we think we overlook it. We overlook the importance. And, going back to what we were talking about first of all, is in my assessment, my diagnosis, I don't see it doing me a disservice now. I've got out of my head. Years ago, I would have judged myself because of all the messages that I'd had.
Okay, but what would you have said to yourself? What would be the typical?
Well, it would have been like, oh, why can't you read and write? Surely you can read and write. Surely you can spell. I remember even as a child, and this comes back from my schooling beliefs, because every single Friday afternoon we had to have spelling lessons.
Yes.
And of course, you read out your score. So you write your spellings down, and then someone else would mark it, and then you'd have to read out who got 1, who got 2, who got 3. How cruel is that when you think now? But me being a person that wants to do better all the time, I want to learn. I remember, this is showing my age, I am 60. I don't know if anybody listening or watching knows this program. Bob Hoskins used to present an adult reading class on a Sunday morning. And it was visual. So rhythm, there was a picture of 2 hips, like think of a skeleton dancing with tap shoes on it. Rhythm has your 2 hips moving. RHYTHM. See how I'm... So rhythm starts with an R. Your...
Yeah.
Right. So has your... Because you've got a H. So that's
so basically you take your first letter of each word to learn a phrase.
Yeah. But I visualize it. So if somebody says, how do you spell? I can spell, because what I do, I write it as I'm saying it.
Yeah.
So it's a technique.
I do that, Beverley.
And a lot of people probably do.
You don't even think about it, do you? You just pick up these little ways of coping.
Yeah, and sometimes I've thought, why can't, like, I can speed read, but you ask me a long question, okay, like, so in study, you have to read, and then you get a question, and then you have to give your, right, I can pick out the answer, but if you're asking me for my thoughts, oh, hold on a minute, I need to go back and check it again. And so I take twice as long, if not 3 times as long, to keep going through it, because it becomes overwhelming. And I read very linear. Well, obviously everyone does, but like if there's, I don't speak from a script. If you were to give me a script and learn it, no way, couldn't do that.
No, I can't do that.
I really admire actors for what they do.
Yeah.
When I'm learning to speak, if I'm going to do a presentation, I speak from the heart and have bullet points.
Yeah. It's really weird that I like my words to be all on a presentation slide. So I will be more detail rather than pictures. And the reason why, even though I've written it and I know my stuff because it's my stuff that's on the slide, if it isn't there, I feel like I'm not prepared. So even though I won't go word for word on the slide, and I will paraphrase it if that's the right thing, if those words on the slide, I feel like people receiving it will not understand what I'm saying. And I also feel that I'm cheating myself by I'm not going to be confident if it's not there in black and white. It's weird.
And I absolutely hear that, because how I present my slides, I do it on a pale blue background anyway, generally, or white, because it's just, but I bullet point and I use pictures. But if I'm having a fact, I'll still have a fact. I will try and put pictures in, but then I sometimes, in a critic, feel less than.
Yes.
Because then when I walk, if someone's talking after me, then I look at their slides and I think, wow, those slides, they know their stuff really well.
Yeah.
What? I don't know my stuff.
Yeah.
You know, in the doing, I know my stuff. I've learned every different aspect. I don't want to learn, especially with my brain now. I know why. I don't want to just learn this bit that I know. I want to understand all of that, so that I can see where it relates to. And if anyone asks me a question, I can go back and find. And I'm very good at if I always say I don't know every answer, but I certainly know where to find it.
Yes, 100%. And I don't know if you've seen anything in me working with me over the years, and I'll say something about you in a moment, but we might be talking about this, but I know about that, and I often try and go, but look at the bigger picture. That feeds into that and that and that and that and that. But we only want to, not us, but whatever the conversation is, but you only want to do that. That's not good enough, because if you're only dealing with that, you're not dealing with all of this.
And that's why we work so well together, because I am always bringing it back to the simple bit, and I've had to learn to slow myself down, my speech, my breathing, now I understand, why I break things down so much when I study. I can't just sit there and do it all in one day. When some people say, oh, I can do it last minute and I crash it all out. Absolutely not. And think of like the marathon. I am the tortoise. In everything I do, I'm the tortoise. I have to be able to break it down. And whilst I'm adaptable and I can do things last minute, get me to write things last minute, and that absolutely not. Even on an interview quite recently, the first thing as I walked into this interview room, I was given a piece of paper. You've got 20 minutes. Can you write down what you do in this scenario? And I jokingly said, I can't believe you've given me this. It's my worst scenario. I'd rather it be verbal. And now there's a reason for that.
You know why.
I know why.
Yeah.
So that's why I think we work very well, because we work differently and we pull the best from each other, because I will go very simple in stages and sometimes it needs to be pulled out more. But I'm frightened of overwhelm. And then that's where we work very well.
But I've noticed about you, Beverley, and again, it's not a judgment, it's just what we've noticed, is sometimes you're speaking about something and I'm like, what is she referring to? What's she going on about? And I think just my observation, you might have had other conversations and you're pulling from those conversations, but I might not have been privy to those conversations. So I'm like, have I heard this before? What's going on? Where are we? So I then go to you. Can you just expand on that, Bev, or can we just revisit that? What is it we're trying to say?
And that's the thing, where I'm keeping so busy pulling all these bits of information. And that's what the beauty of when we're able to, I'm really proud of where I am in my recovery. I'm a human being, but yes, I can make mistakes, absolutely. But now I'm not afraid to make those mistakes.
No.
Whereas when I was much younger, I was so frightened of making
Yeah.
mistakes because
100%.
if I made a mistake, I didn't see it as a
Mm.
learning. I'd see it as like, oh, see, there again, you haven't done it right. See,
But
try
not only
harder.
that, the judgment you would have got anyway, and some of us got punishment for doing wrong or not paying attention or not doing our best or whatever it is, we got punished for it.
Yeah,
So that embeds the you're stupid, you're this, you're that, whatever. So I think you've got all of those layers to deal with, as well as coming to understand that actually there was a reason why you were trying so hard but not getting the fruit that you should have been getting.
yeah, absolutely. And, take it back to when I was 15 and I had a 500-word essay to produce. And I'll never forget this because the effort I put into it was A star. I really did. And
Yeah.
when we got, it's like you got handed it all back in the classroom. And I know somebody, can't remember their name, sitting next to me, and they were like, oh God, I just did this on the bus on the way to school. They got an A.
I know.
I got
Yeah.
C minus in big
Yeah.
letters
Yeah.
in red. C
Yeah.
minus. You need to apply yourself. You could do much better than this. I was like, I have spent ages on this.
Yeah.
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 So, and what it was, I hadn't given the right answer, but I had in my interpretation, I had in my world.
And this is going to be different to the example you've just given, but I remember in biology quite clearly, Mrs. McMahon we had, very strict but very fair, very lovely but very frightening as well if you got on the wrong side of her. She got us to write something. I think it was something to do about photosynthesis. This is how ingrained this is in my brain, like your 500-word essay. I remember reading the page over and over, and we had to write it in our own words. Well, I wrote it in my own words, probably over 100 times, but it never said what the textbook said. And I couldn't make my understanding of what the textbook said to what I was writing. So what I did was literally copy what was in the textbook into my notebook, not word for word, but nearly the same. And all I got back, like you, was crossings out, and I can't even remember the marks. It was so degrading. You can't just keep copying out the textbook. But I said I haven't. I put it in my own words, but it was still near what the textbook was saying because I just didn't feel like I had the vocabulary to describe what was being described, because how else can you describe it?
That's
And I
right.
never got over that. I never got over
No,
that. And it's
no.
in my school reports as well.
And this is where this really validates as well about trauma. So
Yeah.
just going over some of these points, be gentle with yourself. Our inner critic is more critical than anyone else. And our inner critic takes those messages from other people.
Yeah.
If you're stuck in your recovery, if you're stuck, whatever part, just take a minute and stop, because just step back a bit. There is no race. There is no race.
Yeah.
Just sit back a bit and ask yourself, go and make yourself that drink and go and sit in the garden even. We talk about all these things, but I always consider that, look, I've got a drinking bottle here that someone gave me, and it's got a crystal inside it. Now, I don't use it all the time, but at the moment, I'm using it more because I need that extra self-nurture.
Yeah.
And it is about being able to tap in with ourselves and be vulnerable there and reassuring ourselves it's okay. We can choose when we come out of that and go back into it. And I think that's so important, because we tend to think that, if we're a little bit vulnerable and we check in with ourselves, this is going to happen. Much the same as when we talk to someone about sharing our experiences. This is going to, we're sharing this to reassure you that that's not going to happen, but it's okay to have these times when things aren't perfect.
Yeah, and just to share what's going on for you with someone, so that you get to learn that you're not the only one. In whatever situation it is, you are not the only one.
And what a relief that is.
Yeah,
What
huge
a
relief.
relief.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because for me, what difference will it make now? Well, it means that instead of, and I was starting to dread
Right.
my second year, my next
Yeah,
module. My book's already, it doesn't start till the 4th of October. And guess what? I've already got my book open with my highlighter pens, and I'm starting to read, even for half an
yeah,
hour, 15 minutes, my book. I will have to go back over it again. But I thought, well, if I start now, I'm getting it. It's something
yeah.
I'm doing. What am I doing? I'm doing childhood and youth. So it's something
Right.
that it's
Yeah,
just
you're
embedding
quite
my
aligned
learning.
with. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But I will still do and I'm breaking it down so that I'm relieving the pressure. But because I've got good techniques, wellness tools, as I call them,
yeah,
I will now get additional assistance support. So I'll
yeah.
even get one-to-one support, which will help me to talk with the tutor. And not I've got to give the answers, but that person, that support will be there to help me look at it in a different way and interpret it different.
Now I know we've got to wrap up, but I just wanted to, like you, pick up on something. So you're an adult, and hopefully now you'll get the help and support that you need, that enables you to complete your studies with less friction and more enjoyment.
Mental health will be so much better.
100%. But most of us will have a younger person within our household that may be struggling, and they may not be able to verbalize what it is that they're struggling with in the way that is heard and acknowledged, even if the support is there. So I urge you, as a parent, as a caregiver, to check in with your young people and ask them, what do they think they actually do need in order to support them through their further education, wherever possible. Because I just think, just because they're getting help, if it's not the right help or delivered in the right way, again, like you said about your tutors, and there's not that understanding there, then it can further harm their mental health. So we need to be able to just be open-minded to that and step in and help them be their person that they can turn to.
I think there's another thing here as well. Just because the education or the way we teach people works like that for 80% of the people and it
Yeah.
works well for them,
Hmm.
fantastic. 20% is still a
Huge. Yeah.
huge amount of people that are having to deal with that way of learning when that's not how their brain works.
But doesn't it come to something as well, Bev, when you've described it and this young person has described it, that I've read what they wanted, I've given them what they've wanted, I understand, I've ticked it off, I've delivered. Yeah, when they get the feedback back, it's like, you've not answered the question.
Yeah.
So
Ah,
for me,
to
that
see
should
my
be
face.
sending the red flags to the tutors that there's something else going on here. What is it? What are you and this young person not understanding? Where is the language barrier, and how can we break that down in order to help and
Yeah.
support?
And what I would say, just finally before we go, is if you know someone who is struggling, let them listen to this podcast, this
Podcast,
episode.
yeah,
Send it to them. Let them know they're not alone, because
yeah,
that
100%.
is huge and it makes such a difference. If you've got any questions to ask, email us at breakingthecycle2stepforward@gmail.com, or make a comment underneath if you're watching, and we will see your comments and come back to you. Always ask questions. I'm a big believer in that. Any last thoughts from you, Chris,
100%.
before we finish?
No, I just think it's not a, even though we've been laughing about our learning and the ways that we've coped, for many, it's not a laughing
No.
subject matter. It really hinders their ability to learn, to grow, and it affects their mental health to a point where some have ended their lives. So any way we can shine a light on this, we can bring a bit of humour to it, but at the same time really drive home that there's different ways of learning and different ways of delivering, and there is an absolute right for you to speak up and ask for these different ways of delivery and support. Then we've done our job in this podcast.
Absolutely. And as we say in everything we do, no one way works for every single person.
No. And everyday struggles is a reality for every person.
Yeah, it's how we find our balance and our recovery. Well, thank you as always, Chris, and goodbye to everyone. See you in the
Bye
next
for now.
episode.
Bye.